This is Scott the Fix-It Guy. Our goal with our videos is to empower you to be able to do the repairs on your own and save a whole lot of money and also get that great feeling of having fixed it by yourself.
Hi, this is Scott the Fix-It Guy, and today we're going to talk about the 5 top reasons that your dryer won't heat. And these are the things that I do as an appliance repair technician when I go to a person's home and they mention that the dryer is running but it's not heating. These are the things I would check. So if it's a gas dryer, we know that it has power because we were told that it's spinning, so we know that it has energy. Now on an electric dryer, it uses 110 volts to come in and operate the dryer to spin the tumbler, but another 110 volts come in to operate a heater that causes the heat to dry the clothes. So with an electric heater, if you notice that it is spinning, it's operating, but it's just cold, it's not heating up at all, it might be pretty easy. It might just be that the breaker and the breaker box has tripped. What's interesting with the electric dryer with 220 volts coming in, with that big plug behind your dryer, that type uses 2 of your home's breakers to send power, one for the tumbling and one for the heating. So it could be that the heating one has tripped and is no longer sending energy. So it might be as simple as finding the 2 breakers for your dryer in your home's breaker box.
If this video is helping you, please consider pressing down in the lower right hand corner of your screen the subscribe button, and that really helps our channel. Thanks.
And then turning them both as far as you can to the side to turn them off, and then as far as you can to the other side to fully turn them on. And you know they're on when they stay clicked off to the side and they're lined up with all the other breakers, because they're all going to be in the arm position too. That'd be cool. That may be all it took to get your electric dryer going again. So that's something that I would look at when I have no heat. I'm trying to help the customer is, if it's an electric dryer, maybe it's just an incoming power issue. And I definitely run into that before. The other thing, number 2, that it could be is that the settings for the dryer are actually not set correctly. So some dryers have what's called air fluff, or some of the other terms are no heat, and it's a setting you can control, like you have low heat, you have medium heat, you have high heat, and you also have no heat or fluff. And sometimes inadvertently the consumer has got into that position, or maybe one of the kids was playing with the dial and the dryer won't heat up. And I go there as an appliance technician, I don't even want to charge them because it's just the dial needed to be reset. So that's really easy. So that's the second thing you can check. So we have incoming power, then we have make sure the settings are all correct. On a old-fashioned dryer with a timer, it has different cycles that you can pick along the dial of the timer. But if you look carefully, one of them says no heat, and maybe you were just using that part of the dial. Make sure you go to the regular, or the part that talks about different levels of heat. That's really important. So we have incoming power, we have number 2, let's make sure the settings are all correct. Number 3 could be that this would go along with actually no spinning either. This would be if your door button or door switch is defective. So, you know, on the dryer door you can open it, and near the top, usually it's the upper right hand corner, there's a little lever that moves back and forth, or a button that moves back and forth that the door hits and pushes, which closes a circuit which allows the dryer to operate. So again, if that was not functioning, though, it wouldn't be just no heat, but it'd also be no anything. You wouldn't even hear anything. The dial may still light up, you may have a display, but you wouldn't have any heat, you wouldn't have any running. And one way you can test that little thing is if you move the lever back and forth, it should click. But if there's no sound and you don't really feel a click, that would need to be replaced. And we'll put a link in the description below on how to do that. It's pretty easy. We'll show a video on how to do that. There's also a type that has a button, similar idea. It's kind of located in the same place. you push the button, and if you pushed it and you didn't get a click, that could be the culprit. So again, that'd be an unusual symptom though, because that would be lack of heat, but also you have a lack of your dryer spinning. So usually what we find when there's no heat for a dryer is that it's pretty common. There's a little safety mechanism called a high limit or a thermal fuse or high limit thermostat that is designed to trip or break, that stops current from flowing to the heating mechanism. And this is to prevent a fire. So if your dryer loses its ability to dissipate the high amount of heat that it's built up to take moisture from your clothing, and it can't get rid of that heat, the heat inside the dryer cabinet gets too hot and it can damage things, it could even cause a fire. So these safety devices are designed to cut power. But then when you start running your dryer, it tumbles, but it never heats up. So usually that would be the high limit is tripped or the thermal fuse is tripped, and it's really easy to fix. We'll put some links in the description below to videos that show how to do that. Those parts, by the way, the high limits or thermal fuses, are really cheap. Usually get them at Amazon, it's a good source, but really inexpensive and easy to replace. And very common, because dryer vent tubes tend to gradually get more and more occluded. They get more and more narrow because they build up with the dryer lint, which is comprised of the little fibers that are part of your clothing and part of your sheets, part of your blankets, your towels. They break off during the tumble process, and the blower tries to blow out the moist, hot air, but also with it little fibers. That's the dryer lint. And it does build up. Even if you clean your dryer lint filter all the time, it still builds up. So that's something that you want to check. If you do replace the high limit and you get your heat back, which is really cool, you may still not be out of the woods, because if you didn't correct the initial problem of the occluded dryer vent tube, it'll overheat again. So we're going to put a link in the description below for a video that shows how to use this really cool tool that you hook up to your drill that spins inside the dryer vent tube and gets rid of all the lint that's built up on the outside walls. So that's a really good thing to do, especially if you have a really long dryer vent tube, or you have one that has a lot of turns in it. You can get a buildup. Probably the worst offender for the dryer vent tubes is when you have an apartment or you have a condominium. Very often the dryer vent tube is kind of short, which is good, but when it leaves your dryer and goes into the wall, it makes a 90-degree turn and it goes straight up, and it goes up sometimes pretty far to get to the roof to dissipate all that moisture and that heat. The problem is as you're running your dryer, there's fibers that are suspended in the air that kind of defying gravity because the blower is keeping them suspended. When you cut the power or when the cycle is done, gravity acts on it, they all fall back down and they start to build up. They build up right where it makes that 90-degree turn, and they build up pretty quick. Usually that kind of a setup, within 3 months, you can have enough buildup where your dryer won't dry very well. It'll take a long time for your dryer to dry the clothes. That means your dryer vent tube is getting more and more narrow. And eventually it gets so narrow, it can't get rid of that heat. It'll pop that little device. And again, some dryers can have up to 3 of these little safety devices. When you open it up, you don't really know which one is the problem, which one is the troublemaker. So if you can get a multi-tester, it's a really good tool. I'll put a link in the description below for one that's about $12 on Amazon. Really easy to use. It can tell you if current can flow through your thermal fuse or your high limit. If it can, then you know that that piece is not the problem with your heating, that it's something else. So we're going to go over how to replace that in the links below, and also I'll give you some different parts you can get really cheap. So another thing that could be, if you have an electric dryer, this is less common, is that the heating element looks like a bunch of springs. They get red hot and create this, due to resistance, create this huge amount of heat. They can break over time. You know how metal, when it gets hot, cold many times, eventually that spring breaks and the electrons can't flow through it anymore and you don't have any heat. So in an electric dryer, sometimes you have to replace this heating element, and pretty easy to do. We'll put a link in the description below on how to do that one too. And then on a gas dryer, I think gas dryers are actually a little more common. You may have a piece called the igniter, which is designed to ignite the gases coming in by getting red hot. It glows really, really bright, and then it has enough heat like a match to ignite that gas. But those igniters get weak. Sometimes they still glow, but they don't get hot enough. And if they don't get hot enough, it's pretty cool. The dryer won't even let in the gas unless it can get to the right temperature to cause ignition, because they don't want to have an explosion. So if that igniter is getting weak, you may have a situation where it just won't heat up the gas anymore. And that's easy to do too. So that's changing your igniter. We'll put a link in the description below on that one too. Gas dryers have these two little round things, black things about like that. They're called primary and secondary gas coils. They're little solenoids. They are copper wire that, when energized, create a strong magnetic field, and they pull up on pins and they move things around inside the gas valve to either let energy come in for your igniter or to let gas flow in for ignition. And they get weak over time, and they don't do their thing anymore. They lose some of their electromagnetism, and you can replace those. Those are really cheap and easy to do. So on a gas dryer, that could be the cause of the no heat. It could be the igniter, or it could be the gas coils. There's also another piece in there called the flame sensor, which I have replaced in dryers before, but it's really rare. I don't think we even need to point toward that because it so infrequently goes out. It's much more common that it would be the igniter or the coils. So the last one I want to talk about is on certain dryers. If the heat stops working, you're in luck. You may have a resettable high limit or thermal fuse. So it may have gotten too hot for whatever reason and blown this fuse and cut power to your heater. But on these models, which include LG, Samsung, and Bosch, I think ASCO has it too, there's a button you can press and that'll reset and your dryer will work great. It'll have perfect heat. But unless you've resolved that problem of why it overheated, it would just overheat again. You'd be pressing the button like, every time you use the dryer. It'd be kind of silly. So on the LG and on the Samsung, this little piece is really easy to get to. You got to make sure on any of these dryers before you try to do this that you unplug them, because if they have power and you go in to press this little hidden button, there's two metal pieces that are called terminals, and they have energy going into them. And if you press the button, your finger may touch both those terminals at the same time, and it hurts. It'll shock you. So I don't want you to go through that. So make sure you unplug it. On the LG and the Samsung, look to the right side of your dryer, the right side panel, and look down near the back in that corner. It'll be a round plastic piece. Take a flathead screwdriver, pry it in there, and just pry that plastic piece off. And then if you look in, you can use a flashlight. You'll see a silver tube, that's the burner tube, and connected to that will be a high limit with two black piece with two shiny metal pieces and two wires connected to it. And in the middle will be a little black button. Reach in there and press that black button. If it clicks and it moves in, you've just reset your dryer, and now your dryer will heat really well. As long as, again, you've corrected that problem, you fixed it, you're done. You can just put the little plastic piece back in and save yourself a lot of money, a lot of anguish. So that's true of the LG and the Samsung. And on the Bosch, and I think on the ASCO too, you unplug it. It's usually a 220 volt big plug. You pull it out. On the back, there's a panel about this big with little screws around the perimeter. Just take all the screws out, and then you can pull that panel off, and you'll see a little black plastic thing with two metal terminals. And this time you'll see a red button in the middle. And if you press the red button and it clicks, then you got it. Your dryer's going to work. If you press those buttons either on the LG and Samsung, the black one, or on the ASCO and the Bosch, the red one, and it doesn't move and it doesn't click, that means that your heating problem is due to something else. It means that it didn't overheat and trip the thermal fuse, but instead, probably on an electric one, the heating element needs to be replaced, or on a gas one, more than likely it's the igniter. Next most likely would be the primary and secondary gas coils, which again are easy to replace. And lastly, the one that probably won't happen would be that your controller, your circuit board that sends energy, kind of the computer or the brains of the operation, has parts in it called relays, little usually blue or white or black plastic boxes, and they're electromechanical devices, and they use magnetism to pull little contacts closed, and when they're closed, power can go to your heater or power can go to your motor. But if they can't close, like they just don't move anymore, they don't have enough electromagnetic force, or they have a bunch of carbon that's built up and they won't close, you'll lose something. You'll lose heat or you'll lose tumbling. In that case, it's kind of sad because you have to fork out a lot of money and you have to buy a new controller. They're easy to replace, but they're kind of expensive. So that's about it for reasons that dryers won't heat. And I run into it a whole lot as an appliance repair technician. It's one of my main calls that I do, and most of it is very preventable if, not all of it, but most of it is very preventable if the homeowner is willing to get that tool and clean out that dryer vent tube. Last thing I want to mention though is these things called dryer sheets, or anti-static or anti-cling sheets that you can throw into your dryer. Please, please, please don't use those. I know they make your clothes smell good. They make the fabric softer. They get rid of static cling, which is great. But they coat your clothing and everything in your dryer with kind of it's invisible, but it's a waxy coating. You can tell if you take your lint filter out and you rub your fingers on it and then rub your fingers together, you go, ooh, that feels like wax. Because it is basically a type of wax. And the bad part about that is that wax permeates your filter, and the little tiny holes that the air is supposed to flow through, even though you've cleaned all the lint off, there's still wax that's stopping a lot of the airflow. One way you can tell you have a problem is if you take your lint filter and you put it underneath your kitchen faucet and you let some water go down on it. If the water beads up on top and just sits there and won't go through, that's the wax preventing it. And if that were the case, you could take hot water, you could take an old toothbrush and maybe some dishwasher detergent, really clean that really well, and that'll get rid of all the wax. And then as long as you don't use those dryer sheets, your dryer is going to work a lot better. You're going to be able to get rid of that hot, moist air much faster, because it has to go through that filter. And if that filter is all blocked with this invisible surface, it causes trouble. A lot of people say, well, Scott, what am I supposed to use besides these sheets? They make something that looks like a tennis ball that has a whole lot of surface area. It's kind of like a cloth tennis ball. If you throw about 4 or 5 of those in with your dryer, it'll pull all the static onto the ball and it won't go onto your clothing. So that's a good result. We use that at home. So again, hopefully this has helped you out. Please subscribe when you get a chance. There's a little link down here in the lower right hand corner, and really appreciate that. It really helps our channel. And if you can hit the little bell button, then we can send you a new video every time we make a new appliance repair video. And please feel free to contact me at scottthefixitguy@yahoo.com. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have about how to get your dryer heating again. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Watching our video, and please subscribe to our channel when you get a chance, and also click the little bell notification button so we can send you weekly videos on all the different ways of fixing appliances around your home and saving you lots of money. So thanks again for watching, and please also press the like button for our video if this was helpful to you. Feel free to contact me at
the email listed below, which is scottthefixitguy@yahoo.com, with any of your questions. And also, if you need to have a FaceTime meeting with me or a Zoom meeting, you can click on one of the links below in the description, and we can set up a 15-minute or 30-minute video conference where we can work on your appliance problem. So thanks again for all your support and for watching the video.